The Don't Worry Darling saga is perhaps one of the most talked about tabloid topics in Hollywood in recent years when it comes to films and behind the scenes drama. It's such a mess that people are more curious about the behind the scenes drama than they are about the actual film. And after watching this film and remembering what I've read from gossip sites, certain rumors may have some more validity than we think. Hello, everyone, and welcome back to For the Agenda. My name is Huang. If you're new here, welcome. Today, I am going to be giving some in depth thoughts to Don't Worry, Darling. Now, I gave my first reactions over at Film Posters already, if you want to check that out, but I needed time to sit with this film. I needed to process a lot of things, and I really just had to think about everything I saw, remember everything I read. This will be more of an in-depth review in terms of going into detail, but no spoilers, obviously. This is a spoiler-free review, but this will have details as to what certain things I found interesting because again, I have been following this story since its production. I know there's a lot of backstage gossip. I know they're trying to play this down. That the Don't Worry Darling PR team is doing the absolute most in trying to die this drama down. But if you saw the Venice Film Festival carpet, you can tell that there's already some drama between cast members. If you have seen the gossip rumors, the film has maybe a couple of points in terms of their favor. So let's just dive right into it. If you don't know what Don't Worry Darling is, this film is about a 1950s housewife living with her husband in a utopian experimental community who begins to worry that his glamorous company may be hiding disturbing secrets. So I'm going to start with the positives here. I think there are a lot of aesthetically pleasing camera shots. I thought the production design was incredible and the costume design fantastic. I will say this film is beautiful to look at. It's visually just stunning. I have to give my hat off again to Florence Pugh. She was amazing and she carries this whole film. She has never turned in a bad performance and she always finds depth in her characters to channel and bring to life on screen. She just commands your attention every time she's on screen. And she's a force of nature. She was just so good in this role that I could not imagine her being any other character in this film. She had to be Alice. She really pulls this off. It was fantastic. Next up, Harry Styles. I thought Harry Styles was good. He was pretty good. I will say some scenes of his were better than others. Some scenes you can tell he was going with the flow, and other times when he was on screen with Florence Pugh, it felt as though Florence Pugh was guiding him through the scene. And of course, that's when his scenes were honestly better. When they had their scenes together, I bought it even more when he was this character. I think he is a charming leading man, but you can tell he wanted to make sure he delivered in his first role, but I will say it would have benefited him to have some stronger direction. When he wasn't on screen with Florence, again, he was going with the flow. Certain choices that were made, I don't think were as strong as they could have been. And again, that's not completely on Harry Styles. I will say he needed just some better direction to know more of what he could have done. Maybe he could have done different takes, but I just think he is a good actor. I will say he is a good actor. While some people will say the jury is still out on him as an actor, I think My Policeman will actually be a better test for him. And I've heard some good things about him there already, so we'll see. But here, he has some shouting lines, which he delivers with confidence. And he has some moments where it's Harry Styles and not Jack Chambers, which can work at times. But here you can tell it's just a matter of him not being clear on some of his perspectives. And also, someone else who did a really good job in this film is Chris Pine. He ate this role up. He was such a great and convincing villain. He's really got that charm. He really just knows how to make sure you keep your eyes on him. He's just fantastic. He's really good in his role. And he has this scene where he goes toe to toe with Florence Pugh. I thought that was probably one of his best scenes. It was really just so well delivered. He was fantastic. And as for his counterpart, Gemma Chan, Her role, she didn't really have that much to do. She has a line that is repeated so often that it does stick with you, but she does bring, I feel, personality to the role, which is great. And I will say that she ended it on a great note. I thought she did well. There just wasn't enough meat on the bone for her to, really sink her teeth into that role. She could only do so much, and I do think this is the best she could have done with the role. It was a little underwritten. I will say some of the supporting roles were underwritten. The juicier roles were obviously Harry Styles, Florence Pugh, and Chris Pine. And someone else who does a really good job with not a lot and still makes a memorable impact is actually Kiki Lane. She was really good in her role. I actually liked her quite a bit. And again, she leaves a really good impression. You will not forget her in this film. I thought she was just great. And I will say there were two roles that I just wasn't completely convinced by. One of them was Nick Kroll. I thought he was fine. He does a good job, respectable job, but it didn't completely click for me. Again, that is due to his character being very underwritten. I don't think he got that much to do. He just made it work, and he was good, but had the character been better written, yeah, he would have probably done a better job because he is a good actor. And Olivia Wilde's performance, I thought she was fine. She played it well. Her case, I actually do think someone else would have been able to deliver it a little bit better, because it's not that she's a bad actress. I just think that the character, the best friend, felt a little one dimensional. And there are actresses out there who could have maybe added a little bit more to the role. While I was watching this film, to me at least, it felt like she secretly wanted to be the lead. And I don't think she could have pulled off the lead, not because, again, she's not a good actress, but once you see Florence Pugh deliver the role, it's hard to think about how you could top that. It's really hard. I do think, had the role been a little better written, she would have given a more memorable performance. You need a little bit more. You need a little more sabor with that role. You just kind of gotta give her a little more to do, because what she's given to do is fine. Given the context of the story, it works, but that's it. It doesn't do anything else other than that. And speaking of Olivia Wilde, she's an actress here. She's a director, and she is a screenwriter. It's, that's a lot, you know. And might say it's a lot. I mean, you kind of live by the sword and die by the sword. If this flops, it's kind of all on you because you took on all of this. But also, if you pull this off, then you do gain a lot of the glory. So that's why it's a big risk to do all three. And here, the directing was interesting. I think she does do a good job as a director. I saw Booksmart. I thought she did a great job in Booksmart. And here, the directing is actually really good. And I will say, one shot in particular reminded me of Midsommar. If you know me, you know I'm not a fan of Midsommar. That the only reason I sat through it was for Florence Pugh. And for a moment, I'm not gonna lie, I was secretly going, did Florence Pugh suggest that? Or maybe she did that shot? I can't remember right now what the scene was, but I will say it did give me a Midsommar vibe. So, food for thought. And I will say, as a director, she does a really good job here with the color palette. The color palette of Victory was actually quite beautiful, and she does pull that off really well. Now, I gotta start critiquing this film. Now, I have to touch on this subject because we are talking about Olivia Wilde here. In certain interviews, she had talked about these sex scenes between Harry Styles and Florence Pugh, and that this was kind of gonna be a new take because she wanted to take it from the perspective of the female orgasm, if you will. And I'm not gonna lie, the scenes, they were steamy, but I didn't really feel it was groundbreaking, if you will. I appreciate actually that she wanted to focus on pleasure being shown from the female perspective, but I do feel that either it gets cut short where you don't really feel any buildup, and it sometimes just doesn't do enough. But again, I like the idea of not seeing the pleasure from the man's perspective, seeing it from the woman's perspective. It just feels like it's a great idea that had you just executed it a little bit more would have been great. I felt the pacing was off At one point, I thought it was gearing up to start preparing for the ending. Like, here we go. This is moving pretty well. This is moving pretty well. We're getting to that ending. Here we go. And then I saw we had another hour left, and I was like, go. Okay. But I want to see if you can stick the landing, you know? I think some messages here were clear in terms of, for example, women standing up for themselves and fighting back, that they are smart and they can go toe to toe with men, that those who try to paint them as insane or just afraid of the power they hold, and how they're able to liberate themselves from the male dominated society and their shackles. I got all of that. But I also saw that coming going into it. And I could kind of tell that that was what we were going to get out of the film after watching the trailer. And sometimes I feel the best messages are the ones that take us by surprise, leave a memorable impact on us, and leave us thinking about it and analyzing it. And the same can go for the concept of a great film. And here, I did my analysis, but I don't think there was that much more to analyze. It could have used another layer of depth to the film, so they could have stuck with us more. That's the thing. The film itself does not challenge the audience enough. It doesn't ask them to think enough. And the film's inspirations, I don't want to go into the details of those because unfortunately, I do think it could kind of spoil the movie for you. So I don't want to go into all of that. But with this kind of film, this grand vision, you have a grand scope. Had there been that extra layer to challenge us, to make us think, to make us have debates, to have us really analyze more of how we could see this in society, I think that could have worked. But see, here, you do the work so quickly that then you're like, all right, there's nothing else to think about. I got it all down. We're done. And I think that is a problem with a film like this. Again, this film has a grand vision. I just wish it would have pulled it off. And now, one of my biggest problems with Don't Worry, Darling is the script. It had its moments. For the first two-thirds, you're actually really invested in what's going to happen. But that third act, it lost me a bit, and I think it's for sure going to lose people. It felt very rushed, and it felt as if the writer kept changing things at the last minute, like maybe even on set. And you feel that because it loses cohesion, it loses that glue that was keeping it together, and it loses that potential to really stick the landing. The film, I feel, was banking on the ending, blowing people away and knocking their socks off. And my reaction was like, oh, that's it? We're done? Like, without spoiling it, I feel a lot of people will actually be like, you've got to be kidding. The energy in my screening felt that way once it ended. Like, the twist for me actually kind of ruins the film. Like, you do get the inspiration behind what she was going for, but it leads up to that final shot and you were excited, and then what it ends up leading to, it just falls short. By the time you figure out what's going on in Victory, you're kind of just like, well, let's cut to the end, let's see what happens. And then the ending shot for me was just like, all right, it's done. We're done here. And I think that is a problem because that's not sticking the landing. An audience, again, will always remember how you start a film and how you end a film. The middle can be a little choppy, but if the beginning is strong and the ending is strong, odds are that they're going to really enjoy the ride overall. And here, that's a good way to describe this film. It goes up and up and up a roller coaster, and then by the time you get down, the fear's over, the ride's over, the fun's over. You don't sometimes even go back on the ride. So overall, I will say I liked the film. Oh, because again, those first two-thirds are really good. And I was enjoying everything until that third act. I'm actually really mad at this third act because I actually think Olivia Wilde could have delivered something that was so strong and so memorable that it's upsetting to see it come so close and then fizzle out. She takes a really big swing with this film and she misses. And it's a shame. I think I need a rewatch, but it does feel like Don't Worry, Darling is a juicier tabloid headline than it is a film. And I think the film could have been fantastic had they just stuck the landing. And it's still an engaging and entertaining time, especially for Florence Pugh's performance, but it just didn't do enough for me, at least. As for where I think you should watch this, I do think that it, for me, was a good experience in the theater. Had the movie stuck the landing, I would definitely be telling you to see this in the theater. But because it didn't, I'd say if you're really interested in watching this, you should go to the theaters to watch this. It's a good time. If you really want to see Florence Pugh's performance or even Harry Styles' performance, like really badly, go see this in the theater. This is a great experience in the theater, again, till the ending. And if you feel you can wait, then I would say wait for HBO Max. But it's entertaining and engaging enough that I feel mainstream audiences might enjoy this more than others. So it's all up to you. And if you're hesitant, but you want to see it in a movie theater anyway, matinee show. Those are the ways to go. So my rating for this is going to be a 7 out of 10. And that is mostly thanks to Florence Pugh and that first two thirds. That first two thirds really got me, which is why I'm so upset with that third act. Because again, she had something here and it fizzled. She struck up. So those are my thoughts on Don't Worry, Darling. Thank you so much for watching. If you stuck till the very end, I really appreciate it. If you like this video, you can hit the like button and subscribe. I'd greatly appreciate it. And you can follow me on Twitter and on Letterboxd at Leading Mohicans. Thank you for watching. And remember, regardless of what others feel about the things you love, it's always for the agenda. Bye.